The Verge of Death. The story unfolds in 2001. Nadia gently approaches her sickly mother, mentioning it's New Year's Eve and asking if she'd like a small celebration at home. Myrna, her eyes brimming with tears, pleads with Nadia to heed her father's warnings for the safety of them all. Suddenly, Myrna coughs up blood onto Nadia, who panics and calls for her father and brother. Sayatno, suggesting it's just a fever, leaves the room without offering any medicine. When Yoga questions why he's not helping their mother, Sayatno angrily shoos him away. Meanwhile, Yoga overhears his father in another room, desperately pleading with someone or something to spare his wife from harm. Later that evening, Nadia and Yoga are relieved to find their mother seemingly recovered, joyfully preparing food. As midnight approaches, they exchange New Year's wishes. Suddenly, a dark shadow looms behind Myrna, causing her to abruptly rise from her chair and walk away. Nadia discovers her mother plunging her face into a boiling pot, prompting a frantic struggle. Sayatno manages to pull Myrna away, and they rush her to the hospital. 3 months later, Sayatno has opened a new shop. Meanwhile, at home, Yoga wonders why their father opted to replace the tiles instead of cleaning their mother's bloodstains. As Nadia seeks Yoga's help with homework, he shows disinterest until they discover a hidden compartment when a tile shifts unexpectedly. Investigating further, they encounter a demonic force ensnaring Yoga, prompting Nadia to intervene. Despite breaking free, they witness scorpions emerging, causing panic. Nadia dismisses Sayatno's inquiry about the disturbance, noticing the tile has returned to its original position. During dinner, Yoga accuses Sayatno of contributing to their mother's death, receiving an angry response and a slap before Sayatno storms out. Later, Yoga hears his mother's voice calling his name, sending chills down his spine. Bewildered, Yoga spots a young girl darting through the house. The kitchen light flickers on, leading him to find his mother standing by boiling water. Confused, he approaches her, only to be startled by the sudden appearance of her ghost, which vanishes. Meanwhile, Sayatno brings a goat into the house, leading it to the secret room. When Yoga peeks inside, he witnesses something horrifying. 9 years later, Yoga feels it's time to confide in Nadia about their father's secret, believing she's mature enough to understand. In the dead of night, Yoga guides Nadia near the ominous room, urging her to take a peek inside. To her horror, Nadia witnesses Sayatno engaging in a sinister ritual, sacrificing a goat and consuming its blood. Later, as Sayatno heads outside to bury the goat's head, Nadia's curiosity overwhelms her, and she demands answers. Meanwhile, Yoga forcefully opens the door to the secret room, and confronts Sayatno about his deceit. Sayatno reveals his past as a destitute merchant who struck a deal to serve as the house's caretaker in exchange for shelter. Sayatno longs to be a typical parent, providing for his children's needs and granting their wishes. Despite initially manageable circumstances, the entity's return brought turmoil. Myrna reveals the creature's demand for Yoga, offering herself instead. Despite Sayatno's willingness to sacrifice himself, Myrna insists the deal is sealed, urging him to shield their children from the truth. Myrna's health deteriorates, and Sayatno pleads for his life to be taken instead, but to no avail. Determined to end the ordeal, Yoga smashes the goat's skull despite Sayatno's protests. The lights flicker and go out, prompting Sayatno to plead desperately with the entity. Yoga tries to flee with Nadia, but they are blocked by ghostly apparitions. Terrified, Yoga retreats, haunted by more ghosts that Nadia cannot see. The next day, during a class presentation, Nadia's research on the ritual is exposed to the entire class, leading to mockery and humiliation. Later, returning home, Nadia discovers electricians cannot identify the cause of the electricity outage. Later that evening, Nadia receives a call from Setya, one of Sayatno's workers, who informs her that Sayatno hasn't been seen at the shop and is unreachable. Concerned, Nadia calls Yoga to share the news. She explains that she hasn't been able to reach their father since the afternoon, and now she's alone at home. Suddenly, Nadia's phone battery dies. Worried and alone, Nadia heads to their neighbor's house to charge her phone while awaiting her dad's return. The neighbor warmly welcomes her in and invites her to join them for dinner, mentioning they've cooked the goat her dad gave them. Politely declining, Nadia insists she's already eaten. The neighbor reveals she's been feeding her son meat from Nadia's dad since pregnancy, believing it contributes to their children's health. Yoga rushes home to find Nadia terrified and a lady standing in a bathroom corner. As he approaches, a horrifying entity confronts him, causing him to collapse. Nadia calms him down. When Sayatno returns, Nadia questions his whereabouts. He explains he went to find a black goat. Nadia urgently seeks a solution, but Sayatno insists stopping the deal would be disastrous. Sayatno apologizes to Yoga and explains he's been performing the the ritual since their mother's passing to protect them. He urges Yoga to understand their situation. Nadia pleads with Yoga to heed their father's words, revealing their mother's final wish. Together, they assist Sayatno with the ritual of burying the goat's severed head. Miraculously, electricity returns, and they share the goat's meat with neighbors the next day. 6 months later, on New Year's Eve, their relationship has significantly improved. As Yoga retrieves his jacket, the closet door opens on its own, hinting at something mysterious lingering. Despite the disturbance, Yoga continues only to be confronted by a demonic entity. Nadia and Sayatno are oblivious to his screams amidst the noise of fireworks outside. Nadia finds Yoga's lifeless body, but an invisible force assaults him relentlessly. The next day, as Yoga's body is prepared for burial, Sayatno thanks the neighbors for attending, but requests they refrain from the burial. He instructs Nadia to lock the door behind her, but she encounters an entity for the first time, causing her to close her eyes and cover her ears. In class the next day, Nadia is horrified when a goat's head materializes on her table, disappearing moments later. Bastala notices Nadia taking antidepressants and, sensing her fear, empathetically acknowledges the difficulty in sharing one's story. He shares his own coping mechanism of writing everything down. That night, Nadia attempts to write in her diary, but is drawn by mysterious voices to the secret room, where she discovers the demonic entity dismembering Yoga's body. Horrified, Nadia is paralyzed with shock. The next scene shows Sayatno bandaging Nadia's hands, explaining she fainted in his workroom. Still reeling, Nadia tells him about the creature devouring Yoga. Sayatno reassures Nadia and leaves, telling her to prepare herself. Later, as he drives Nadia, she spots an old lady, but Sayatno dismisses it. As time passes, Nadia sees the woman again, causing panic. She jerks the steering wheel, and when she opens her eyes, she finds the entity beside her. Nadia exits the car, realizing her father is missing. Frantically searching, she encounters another entity in the forest, while Sayatno wakes up to find Nadia gone. Terrified, Nadia retreats but is grabbed by a hand. Later, she wakes up in a shack, overhearing Sayatno pleading to an elder for help. The elder dismisses him, stating the matter is between him and the creature, and instructs Sayatno to leave. Exploring, Nadia finds photos of various families, including hers, in a room. She questions the elder about them, and he explains they're those he's helped. Nadia asks why some photos, including her parents, appear stained while others are clean. The elder explains that the stains on the photos appear when people violate the deal. Sayatno made a new deal with the creature, starting with a goat sacrifice, but escalating to a demand for human sacrifice. Sayatno swears he didn't anticipate this demand, but the elder accuses him of greed, leading to his family's downfall. Sayatno vows to find a solution and asks Nadia to trust him. He sells his belongings and donates most of his wealth. That night, Nadia exhibits strange behavior, ultimately attacking Sayatno, who subdues her. Sayatno and Nadia flee their home, seeking help across Java for years. In 2021, they visit an elder named Unjuk, pleading for assistance in breaking free from the creature's grasp. Unjuk grimly informs them that their efforts are futile due to the deal Sayatno made. Every decade, the creature returns for its offering. Feeling hopeless, they return home, where Nadia thanks Bastala for his support and gifts him her diary. On New Year's Eve, Sayatno sits by Nadia's side as she requests solitude for her final moments. He embraces her, seeking forgiveness before leaving her alone. As midnight strikes, the room's lights flicker, and the creature materializes behind Nadia before vanishing. Gripped by madness, she mutilates herself before ending her life. Bastala reads Nadia's diary, where she expresses hope for reunification in the afterlife. Consumed by regret, Sayatno descends into madness. Startled by movement in his house, he investigates and finds the door to his workroom opening on its own. Inside, he sees the spirits of Myrna, Yoga, and Nadia transformed into goat-headed beings, before the door closes behind him.